Hi, today I'm going to talk about something that ruined my marriage. It's mainly how religion ruined it. And I am a Christian, don't think I'm not. But my husband was in this church. Maybe I should start at the beginning, just to give you the full story. When I first married him, he was like drinking really heavily. I probably should have seen that before I married him, but I ignored it and I shouldn't have. But I was ready to divorce him at one point, shortly after we married. And then he decided to get back into this church that he belonged to when he was in prison a number of years ago. And after that, I thought maybe we don't need to divorce, because he got into this church and all of a sudden he was quitting drinking and quitting smoking. And I thought maybe things will change and get better. And they did for a while, but then he wanted me to get into the church, and I did, just to keep the peace, figuring no big deal. But as I really started getting into this religion, I started realizing this church was really far out there with their beliefs and rules and regulations. And that's basically what I mean about religion. I have nothing against a Christian church. I am a Christian and I go to church and listen to sermons online all the time. And read the Bible, pray, the whole 9 yards. But this church was really bad. There was a lot of rules and regulations, particularly with women. It seemed like they really wanted to oppress women or something. I don't know. They wouldn't allow women to wear everything they wore had to be modest. They could only wear long skirts, long full skirts that did not show their body, and they weren't allowed to cut their hair. And my hair is like so thin and stringy, even when it's short. When it gets longer, it's even worse. And I really didn't want to go along with all of it, but I did for the most part, because just to keep the peace and try to make this marriage work. I don't know. I just thought it would be easier than causing waves and not. But it got really bad as time went on. It was like he had too much pride, which is a no-no in Christianity. Sorry, Jesus doesn't want us to be prideful. But he would talk to people and say that, oh, me and my little church, of which we watched online, there was only 2 little churches that were actually part of this whole non-denominational church that they called themselves. But me and my church, we're the only ones going to heaven. I mean, a lot of these other Christians, they're gonna find out differently when it's time to go. Just because the women didn't dress quite so modestly. They cut their hair short. I don't know. It was like really weird. But he would talk to people like that, and I just want to cringe. It's like people would shy away from him, and they of course just turn their back and start inching away from him. Even though it was horrible, and it was I got to really not like this, because there was one point I cut my hair just to my shoulder. I didn't cut it really short, because I don't like it really short anyway. But it wasn't until 2 weeks later he says to me, I'm gonna go, I need to cut my hair, so I'm gonna go have my hair cut. And I said, go ahead, I had mine cut 2 weeks ago. And he looks at me in absolute horror, and he says, you did? My gosh, you look like a guy. And he walks away, totally snubbing me. I'm like, I cut my hair 2 weeks ago. You didn't notice it then. Why are you noticing it? It's there's something wrong with this whole idea. And in 2 weeks, he just never really paid much attention to me, or he just, I don't know if he didn't notice it for 2 weeks until I mentioned it. But it was weird. But the turning point really came when I decided to go back to college. Yes, that was a no-no in there too, in that church too. College is a bad thing. It's why? There are some things you want to do out in the world and you need college. They won't hire you if you don't have it. And I lost my job at my at a company I had been working at for quite a while and liked. And luckily, I was lucky enough to find another job within the company in a different department, doing something totally different, but which I found up really liking. But anyway, I was afraid of losing my job again. Big companies are that way. They can just get rid of you anytime, anywhere. And they did eventually. But I thought a college degree would help me find another decent job. And it was an online college. I didn't attend classes or anything like that. And my company paid for it. They paid $5,000 a year towards tuition, so why not? What? How does it hurt us? Oh, the church says, no. It's really weird. Anyway, after that, he was sort of like, he got really standoffish. I was like, the only time he would come to me was like to have sex, and of course I had to pay the bills. It seemed like that's all he was using me for. There was another time I was like doing house cleaning while he was out of the house. Anyway, I hate house cleaning, so I turned on some heavy metal hard rock music, because it just like gets me going, gets me through it. Something I don't like. But he comes home and hears that and starts yelling and screaming how that's the devil's music and blah, 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 I'm going to hell and blah. Yet there was another time I walked into the front room and found him watching porn on the internet. I'm like, how's that any better than heavy metal music? This guy was like, ugh. But he really started getting to me, and it was just, I really did. Towards the end, I felt like he was just using me for sex and to help pay the bills. Otherwise, he just ignored me. Or he'd come home and just complain, bitch about his job and his boss and whatever, and then leave. Like I couldn't say anything. I was like, he didn't want to hear anything from me. I got tired of it, and one day I just said to him, I'm getting tired of being judged. If something doesn't change, I'm going to leave within 6 months. Or I said, I'm thinking of leaving in 6 months. He came back to me the next day and he said, leave now. I don't want you here anymore. So I said, okay, I'll start looking for a new apartment. And I did, and it took a while to get into that apartment. And while I was looking, immediately after we decided all this and that I was moving the next day, he immediately started drinking, he started smoking, he started partying with his friends. He was even dating women before I was even out of the house. It was like he turned back into the person I didn't like at the beginning of the marriage. It was like, why, if he was so gung-ho into this religion and church, why did he all of a sudden turn like that on me? And I was talking to a friend about that, and a friend had said to me, he was probably just trying to control you. That was his way of controlling you. I'm like, I started thinking about it, and he's, you're probably right. He is just trying to control me. If I get away from it, he immediately leaves the religion too. I was like, boy, am I glad to get rid of this guy. And it was such a relief when I finally did leave him. I'm so glad I did. And Christians, I know there are a lot of other judgy Christians out there too that just judge people for the stupidest things. I've talked to a lot of people that said the same thing. The reason they don't go to church is because they're tired of getting judged. And we shouldn't treat other Christians that way. We should be doing things to help bring them into our fold and keep them there, not telling them, oh, your shorts are too short or your hair is too short. You look like a guy. You shouldn't have all that makeup on. You shouldn't do this, that, or the other thing. It's like, come on. Let God do the judging. I mean, it even says in the Bible, do not judge lest you be judged. And let me tell you, everybody, all those Christians out there, they're all sinners. They sinned. They probably had sex outside of marriage. Some of them probably had abortions, and I'm sure they all lie. A lot of them will say, oh, it's only white lie. But a lie is a lie in God's eyes. Just admit it. You're a sinner, just like everybody else. So why do you have to get after people? that's one way to get rid of people out of your life. Anyway, I'm sorry, this was kind of a rant, but it is what it is, and I just hope people take it to heart and think about what they're going to say before they say it. Anyway, God bless, and I'll see you whenever my next video is.